Hi, welcome to another video, and this is just a quick video that I wanted to do, just looking at a few interesting facts relating to knee pain. And so I'm not really talking about any specific exercises here. I'm using a couple. This one, just the decline squat with an isometric hold for rebuilding some tendon strength. But one of the reasons that I might have to do exercises like this is because with swelling in the joint and the knee joint as such, there's been, if you even have just a small amount of fluid, so like 20 to 30 millimeters with like a teaspoon, basically can result in a 50 to 60% reduction in the maximal voluntary muscular activation, especially of the VMO muscle, so the one that's controlling the alignment of the knee, which I get a lot of questions about and have for a long time. Alright, so just a quick follow on from with this ramp squat is the importance of the isometric holding. When you're holding it like this, it just allows the tendons to restructure themselves and rebuild themselves. So they found that the collagen fibers will rebuild much stronger and resilient connective tissue structures by these isometric holds, so letting all the blood just flow into that tendon. And then it actually makes it rebuild with like a cross weave pattern instead of a parallel pattern. This makes it less likely for likely to be re-injured or torn. So that's something that is, I think, really misunderstood, or just people are not aware of. So they're using good exercises, but maybe training it with speeds that are too fast or loads that are too early, instead of using some of the eccentric and isometric holding methods to begin with, and then that could allow them to move forward into other things. Alright, so a great little fact to have in the back of your mind when working with knee pain. Alright, so let's move on to the next one. Okay, so the other interesting factor, which sort of follows on from the last one, is how the glute medius has been found to be both delayed and diminished with those who have knee pain, suggesting there's less ability to control hip movements, allowing for more patella stress. So it's quite interesting, like how another area that's not actually in pain or seems to be a factor is actually a huge factor, and also explains why many treatments do not really get very far or long-term succeed in trying to help that person get rid of their problem, because they're actually working on the area that is not really responsible for the problem. So it takes a multi-pronged approach, and and that's where you have to sort of like break things down into where's the best point to start. You can't just go straight to the exercises that I'm doing here. If you've got a lot of problems, you have to start with simple things, but you have to understand the simple things aren't going to get you very far either. So you have to have this gradual progression of like building. In this case here, this is an example of where we're using the trying to stress the feet, because the last one was trying to stress the hip. That like we said, the glute medius affecting the knee. Well, this time this is where the feet are becoming a problem. So let's have a look at this. Okay, so if I'm focusing on foot stability, and I'm specifically trying to relate this to knee pain and hip pain, maybe even foot pain itself, plantar fasciitis, for example, I have to have a really big importance on what's going on with especially the big toe. The big toe plays a huge role, because your entire body weight moves over this single joint during the action of walking. So if it becomes rigid, which then makes the foot become weak, then everything up above that, ankle, knee, hip, everything is going to be compensating based on what's not going on at the foot there. So and a huge part of the problems with the knee are basically like being put in a position of horrible alignment that it really had nothing to do with, but the foot and the hip had everything to do with it. So these are always good things to keep in mind. That's why I'm just making this video about some of these interesting facts So another one is the feet are driving the reflex stability of the hip, and especially the big toe, because it acts as the catalyst for the glute engagement. So when that big toe's touching the ground, it basically fires up that glute medius, like when it's flexed like that. But if it's unable to do so, then nothing happens. So it really becomes a huge problem for anything that you try to do standing up. Like you might be able to engage your VMO and everything when you're on a leg extension, but that's absolutely useless to you when the minute you're standing up and trying to do things that are on the move. So you really need to have a good understanding of how to tie all this all together so you can get the best out of all the exercises that you're trying to use. So last one will be like a quick fact about ACLs. Okay, so with ACL injuries, they're often happening in this very position, which is this is a change of direction drill that I'm showing. This is like the basic version before it moves into the more explosive where it goes backward straight away. But basically, like this moving laterally is where you'll see the knee blow out. So it'll be right at that point there. That's the cutting movement. And if that foot plant's not nice, then this knee sort of turned out, and that's where everything goes wrong. Now, interesting fact about ACL tears is that 70% of them are non-contact, meaning that they happen exactly like this. All right, and they're 5 to 8 times higher in the female sports people than males, just because they have a lot less. Well, there's a lot of factors as the reason why, but mainly because lack of strength, much more laxity in all of their joints. So they, in explosive movements like this, they really struggle to control it. They just don't have the strength to keep the joints stable. Now, any of the things that we've spoken about before, so hip and feet things, if they're a factor in this, in any of the strength movements, then they're definitely going to be a factor in something that explosive like sports. All right, so here's another jumping exercise. So again, change of direction stuff. Anything that's compromised at the foot and the hip will put that knee in a horrible position, and it's inevitable it's going to fail. All right, so all interesting sort of facts that people are not quite aware of at the time. And I think if they were, they would actually put a lot more emphasis on trying to move well and trying to build strength with movements that actually encourage moving well, as opposed to just machines or basic stuff. All right. So anyway, I hope you've enjoyed that video, and that gives you some ideas for your own training.